Welcome to Middle East Briefing. The content of the briefing includes Thomas Friedman, dehumanization par excellence amid a genocide. Israel detains 100 in Gaza as fears grow for patients in raided hospital. Macron says reconstruction of Palestinian state not a taboo for France. Arab Americans feel a bone-deep sense of betrayal. And they want Joe Biden defeated in 2024. Turkey and Egypt turn page on decade of friction with show of friendship. Thomas Friedman, dehumanization par excellence amid a genocide. Al Jazeera. The New York Times columnist, Thomas Friedman, has been criticized for his coverage of the Middle East. Ali Harb, writing for Al Jazeera, dismisses Friedman's opinions as pompous and demeaning and suggests that the journalist is an embodiment of the United States' approach to the Arab and Muslim world. Harb argues that Friedman's support for Israel is evident in his recent article, in which he describes Gaza as being engulfed by conflict and the West Bank as being boiling. Harb suggests that Friedman's opinions align well with U.S. foreign policy goals, and that his recent piece on the Middle East made inappropriate comparisons between the people of the region and the animal kingdom. Harb concludes that Friedman's warmongering has been facilitated by a dedicated rejection of reality. Israel detains 100 in Gaza as fears grow for patients in raided hospital. South China Morning Post. Israeli troops have raided Nasser Hospital, one of Gaza's main hospitals, and taken 100 people into custody. The facility is currently home to at least 120 patients and 5 medical teams who are without water, food, and electricity. The power was cut and the generators stopped after the raid, which led to the deaths of 6 patients due to a lack of oxygen. The raid has been criticized by doctors and the United Nations, with the Israeli army insisting it made efforts to keep the hospital supplied with power. Macron says reconstruction of Palestinian state not a taboo for France. RFI. France's President Emmanuel Macron has declared that recognizing a Palestinian state is not off the table for France. Macron stated this during a meeting with Jordan's King Abdullah in Paris, where he also called for a ceasefire in Gaza and warned of a humanitarian disaster without any precedent if Israel continues its offensive in the region. France is one of the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, meaning its recognition of a Palestinian state could carry significant diplomatic weight. Macron did not provide any details on when or under what conditions France would recognize a Palestinian state. Arab Americans feel a bone-deep sense of betrayal. And they want Joe Biden defeated in 2024. Yahoo! Arab Americans in Michigan are vowing to defeat President Joe Biden in the 2024 election due to his support for Israel during the recent conflict with Hamas. Many Arab Americans have been angered by Biden's refusal to call for an immediate ceasefire and his doubts about the Palestinian death toll. Arab Americans make up around 5% of the vote in Michigan, a key swing state that Biden won by just 154,000 votes against Donald Trump in 2020. The Abandon Biden movement in Michigan is hosting meetings with third-party candidates, and a separate initiative called Listen to Michigan is urging Democrats to vote uncommitted in the primary. Turkey and Egypt turn page on decade of friction with show of friendship. RFI. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has visited Egypt for the first time since 2013, in an attempt to improve relations between the two countries. Ties between the nations have been strained since the military coup in Egypt in 2013 that led to the ousting of President Mohamed Morsi, who was backed by Erdogan. During his visit, Erdogan and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi discussed cooperation to prevent Israel's military offensive against Hamas in Gaza. The two leaders also pledged to work together to rebuild Gaza once the violence ends. U.S. envoy says Israel has not presented evidence that Hamas diverted UN aid deliveries in Gaza. Associated Press. The U.S. has criticized Israel for not providing specific evidence that Hamas is diverting UN aid. The Biden administration's special Middle East envoy for humanitarian issues, David Satterfield, said that Israel's recent targeted killings of Gaza police commanders have made it virtually impossible to distribute aid safely. Criminal gangs are now targeting the convoys instead of police, while Israeli protests at crossing points and the lawlessness in Gaza are also disrupting aid delivery. Satterfield said that a solution will require the return of security escorts for the convoys. Europe must strengthen its ability to defend itself, says Germany. South China Morning Post. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has called on Europe to strengthen its ability to defend itself regardless of the outcome of the U.S. elections or the war in Ukraine. Scholz made the comments at the Munich Security Conference, where concerns have been raised about the U.S. commitment to helping Ukraine and defending its allies. Former President Donald Trump has said he would not defend NATO allies who fail to spend enough on defense, while Republicans in Congress are blocking aid for Ukraine's defense against Russia. Scholz said that Europe must take more responsibility for its own security, but also stressed the importance of the transatlantic bond. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris assured conference attendees that the Biden administration remained committed to NATO. Pro-Gaza feeling runs high in Lebanon, but Hamas presence is controlled. Al Jazeera. Support for Hamas is growing among Palestinians and Lebanese in Lebanon due to the group's resistance against Israel. Historically, Fatah has been the strongest political force in Palestinian refugee camps in Lebanon, but many are now disillusioned and looking to emigrate. In contrast, Hamas is using the current situation to recruit and grow its influence in Lebanon. The group recently announced a recruitment drive to find new political and social cadres. While Hamas is not as historically strong as Fatah, it has gained popularity, particularly among Sunnis in Lebanon. Palestinians and Lebanese who support Hamas do so because of the resistance they represent, rather than their affiliation with the party. However, support for Hamas is less steadfast among the general Lebanese population, who offer solidarity but have not mobilized politically or militarily. The Qassam brigades, Hamas's armed wing, are active in Lebanon, supported by the Hezbollah umbrella. This close relationship was fractured during the Syrian civil war when Hamas sided with forces opposing Bashar al-Assad, a staunch ally of Hezbollah. However, a rapprochement with Iran and Hezbollah has taken place since Yahya Sinwar took the helm of Hamas in Gaza in 2017. In Munich, China defends ties with Russia, warns West on Taiwan red line. South China Morning Post. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has defended Beijing's ties with Moscow and warned the West not to cross red lines on Taiwan during a speech at the Munich Security Conference. Wang called China a responsible major country that would be a force for stability in a changing world. He rejected a request for China to rein in Russia over its invasion of Ukraine, saying there were not ripe conditions in place for parties to go back to the negotiating table. Wang also dismissed allegations of forced labor in Xinjiang, inviting attendees to visit the region to see the claims were false. Israelis, newly vulnerable, remain traumatized and mistrustful. New York Times. The article discusses the lasting impact of the recent conflict between Israel and Hamas on the Israeli people. It highlights the emotional, physical, and psychological toll that the conflict has had on Israelis, and the loss of faith in their country's ability to protect them. The article also mentions the high number of casualties in Gaza, and the numbing effect it has had on many Israelis. The author concludes by stating that in order to restore Israelis' faith in their country, there needs to be a solution that disarms Gaza. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Thomas Friedman, your host from the Sixth Dimension. Today, we have covered a range of news stories from the Middle East, highlighting the ongoing conflict in Gaza and its impact on various stakeholders. Now, let's dive deeper into these stories and share some insights. Firstly, we discussed the criticism faced by New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman for his coverage of the Middle East. While opinions on the matter may differ, it is important to remember that journalism is a reflection of personal perspectives. We must consider multiple sources and viewpoints to form a comprehensive understanding of any situation. Next, we touched upon the Israeli raid on Nasser Hospital in Gaza, which led to the detention of 100 individuals and disrupted medical services. This incident is deeply concerning, as it jeopardizes the lives of patients who are already in a vulnerable state. It is crucial for humanitarian principles to be upheld, ensuring that medical facilities remain safe and accessible for all. President Macron's statement on the recognition of a Palestinian state by France is a significant development. As one of the permanent members of the UN Security Council, France's stance carries weight and could potentially influence the global discourse on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The recognition of a Palestinian state could be a step towards a more balanced and peaceful resolution. In the United States, Arab Americans in Michigan are expressing their dissatisfaction with President Biden's handling of the recent conflict. This highlights the importance of addressing the concerns of diverse communities within the country. Political leaders must strive to understand and engage with different perspectives to build trust and unity. On a positive note, the visit of Turkish President Erdogan to Egypt signifies a potential thawing of relations between the two countries after years of strained ties. Cooperation between Turkey and Egypt to prevent further violence in Gaza is a step in the right direction. Rebuilding Gaza should be a priority once the conflict subsides, and international collaboration is crucial in this effort. The U.S. criticism of Israel for not providing specific evidence of Hamas diverting UN aid is a reminder of the complex dynamics involved in humanitarian operations. It is imperative for all parties involved to ensure the safe and efficient distribution of aid, prioritizing the well-being of those in need. Lastly, German Chancellor Scholz's call for Europe to strengthen its ability to defend itself highlights the evolving geopolitical landscape. While emphasizing the importance of the transatlantic bond, European nations must also take responsibility for their own security. This reflects a shift in global dynamics and the need for countries to adapt to changing circumstances. In conclusion, the news from the Middle East presents a complex picture of a region grappling with conflict, humanitarian crises, and shifting alliances. It is our duty as informed citizens to engage with these issues critically and empathetically. Remember, understanding different perspectives is the key to building bridges and fostering peace. Now, I invite you, my dear viewers, to share your thoughts and questions. What are your perspectives on these developments? Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.